The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild hit the gaming world by storm and inspired a lot of developers for future open world games, Genshin Impact being the first that many saw use several of that game's mechanics. That brings us to a new open world game that launches today for both PC and the Switch. A space adventure about a man looking for a friend on an alien planet, combining many elements of the Era of the Wild formula with skateboarding. Here is my review of Star Overdrive for the Nintendo Switch. The story here is about Bios. While drifting through space, he received a distress call from an old friend who seemed to be trapped on an alien planet. While looking for her, his ship is attacked, leaving him stranded there, only with a magical guitar that he can use as a sword, and his friend's seemingly sentient hoverboard. As a story, I think it's pretty cute overall. There isn't a huge amount of story scenes here, but the plot of the girl being sent to the planet on a mission and you discovering more of her story through audio tapes, I found interesting. Plus, I have a bit of a soft spot for games where you find little files and they are audibly spoken to you. When it comes to gameplay, Star Overdrive is an open world action game with a ton of skateboarding elements. You'll be traversing through an open world, finding hidden dungeons with puzzles to solve and fighting off enemies in real-time combat. With main progression, your goal in this game is fairly simple. You're trying to power a space elevator on this planet to be able to find and reach where your friend is. How you do this is exploring and puzzle solving. You have this enormous wasteland of a world and you have a handy rocket-powered hoverboard to get you from place to place. You can get boosts from jumping off ledges and doing very skateboard-esque tricks while you're in midair. It's very fast-paced and a bit laid back with you just flying around on your hoverboard as you work your way towards your next objective. Puzzle solving happens when you find the regional towers or just little sections of ruins that have locked up areas. You'll see switches to stand on, devices you need to slash with your guitar sword to provide electricity, and lots of platforms. To solve these, you'll need to find powers or tools in many of the dungeons around each region. These tools will let you telepathically move objects around, create extra jumping pads, or giving you projectiles for you to fire off at objects and enemies. It's a loop that's pretty easy to get behind. You find towers and have to track electrical cables to do little puzzles to power them up. Then you ride up the tower and map out the area, unlocking dungeons and getting points of interest on your map for collectibles and side missions. This game does have combat, but it is fairly light and more focused on puzzles. You can attack with your guitar for physical attack combos, but you're really meant to use your tools. Why would you struggle with chasing an enemy around to get 1 or 2 slashes in when you can just use magnesis to grab an enemy and throw them into another for huge damage to both? Even the bigger boss fights are puzzles, like fighting those huge sandworms around the map where you use your magnetic powers to latch onto them and using projectiles to damage it when it surfaces above the ground. It's a lot of fun, but it's really meant to be a puzzle game, even when you're fighting enemies. Now let's address the elephant in the room. You will quickly notice that this game's loop is eerily similar to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Some parts of it are uncanny with just how similar it is, like what you're seeing here and how both games unlock and let you enter dungeons or shrines. The entrance process being incredibly beat for beat, and even the looks of how you get the shrine's reward, something that goes towards skill upgrades in Overdrive like enhancing your shield or attacks, versus Zelda's focus on it increasing your hearts or stamina. Going through shrines is also similar. Each one is like a big puzzle dungeon, having you use physics like moving objects around, shooting switches, or riding on movable platforms. At the start, I was worried it would be too much of just Breath of the Wild in space. But the further you go, the more unique and different it gets with the formula. I mean, yeah, you're looking for towers to activate regions, and the first tool you get is very clearly just magnesis from Breath of the Wild with a very small change to it. But that's really where the extreme similarities ended. The next tools I got were a projectile attack and creating jumping pads, something that's also implemented in the hoverboard. Speaking of the hoverboard, there's also a lot of materials for you to collect in an upgrade system here. Near each of the towers is an upgrade station letting you pour in materials to create new hoverboard parts. These let you increase stats like speed, boosting maneuverability, and being able to navigate rough terrain, like the water that you're not able to go through at all at the start of the game, and corruption that will mess with your controls otherwise. There's a lot of different things you can modify and unlock here, including increasing your bond by discovering new things, letting your hoverboard patrol around you as you're walking around and do different things, like defending you from opponents or ramming into the first enemy it sees. These upgrades aren't just to help you explore though. You'll find many race events in the main story time trials that require you to go through checkpoints under a time limit to be able to advance the story, and by the time you get to even the second race of the game, you're going to need to upgrade your hoverboard a lot to get past it. This was actually a gigantic difficulty spike I ran into. I collected materials and was making hoverboard upgrades pretty consistently until I got to that point. And I found that I couldn't even finish that event when everything prior had been pretty manageable. Even doing things more consistently in the race with boosting, shortcuts, not going off the efficient path would get me through most of the event, but that last long stretch I just couldn't do. What the game seems to want you to do is a lot of exploration, doing a lot of the side content and going to other available story, effectively grinding for materials and resources. Even after I'd spent a few hours of grinding of just looking for parts to make a better engine to improve my speed from 9% all the way up to 22%, I still couldn't even get close to finishing that second race. There's a fair amount of things to do on the side here, and you're going to need to do a lot of them just for the sake of main story progression. Outside of this, I found this game to be a lot of fun. I do greatly enjoy the Era of the Wild gameplay formula, so having little shrine dungeons to go through was engaging on the puzzle side of things, and just flying around the world at high speeds was fun to watch. In terms of content and length, you can and will get a lot out of this game. If you just want to activate the elevator and complete the story, you can still expect to spend a bare minimum of 15 to 20 hours on this game. Next up is presentation, which I think looks good for what it is. It's very colorful in a not quite cel shaded style. There's definitely a lot of blemishing going on with the models and textures, especially when you go into photo mode and really take a close look. But with most of the game moving at such a fast pace with the hoverboard, it's hard to really see those blemishes when you're flying through the colorful world. Performance is pretty good as well. You will see some small frame dips if you go into battles with a significant amount of enemies all trying to get on you at once. But overall, it's a very stable 30 FPS for an open world game where outside of going into the shrine dungeons, you never really leave said open world. Now let's move on to battery life. On the original and Lite models, Star Overdrive will get about 3 to 4 hours, while the V2 and OLED models will get 5.5 to 6.5 hours. In conclusion, Star Overdrive is an interesting mix of skateboarding, sci-fi, and a whole lot of Era of the Wild thrown together. Now, the downside, there's some small frame dips in larger battles, the amount of grinding you have to do for some upgrades is a bit much, and the early portions of the game feel a bit too much Breath of the Wild with some of the animations, shrine intros, and that first tool you get. But if you like exploration and those types of puzzles, it's a fun little game about exploring an alien world and skateboarding. Reviews to go rate Star Overdrive for the Nintendo Switch a 7 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.